Okay.
Oh, wow.
All right.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, November 21st, 2024 Planning and Zoning Meeting for the Town of Abita. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, for a quick roll call, all members are present, minus Lex. We'll see if he comes late, but for now, he is absent. Next item up, call for agenda modifications. Does anybody have any proposed modifications to the agenda? Nope, hearing none. We'll move to acceptance of minutes from last month's meeting on October 24th.
I move to accept the minutes from the October 24th meeting.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. You mind grabbing your mic clear? Sorry. Okay, minutes are accepted. Few items under zoning. First one up is amending the official zoning map for the town to create separate commercial historic and residential historic zoning designations. We talked about this a little bit in October. We want to start with a report from staff.
So as you mentioned, we did talk about this a bit last month. I added kind of this cover page to start off and kind of frame what we'll be talking about today, because there's a lot of things involved in, historic district on the map and then in the text. And then when also we're splitting out residential and commercial, there's also some things we're looking at in commercial that help with administration by the town, as well as align with some of the things that came out of the master plan as well. So as the overview, we're looking at 1, amendments to the Code of Ordinances, and then 2, amendments to the zoning map. So zoning maps look exactly the same as what we showed you last month, but I'll just kind of maybe briefly go through the staff report and not in too much detail, but just a little bit of orientation. So on page 2, background has some of the things that spurred this work and why it's kind of packaged together. There's a moratorium on commercial uses, permits related to commercial and multifamily uses. And these ordinances refer to language that required clarification in the commercial district. So some of the regulations and some of the hopes for development that the town has hopes for by providing more specifics. And then background C is just mentioning, the adoption of the master plan and how this is your guiding document moving forward in all that you do. So in findings, we talked about some of the development standards that were developed by Dover and Cole as part of the work, but were not adopted as appendices in the master plan. We're working to pull that into the commercial district now. That work has already been done and it's good work. So, why not have it as part of your Code of Ordinances? And then one thing that Kristen thought would be helpful is when we're talking about commercial districts, they don't now have kind of a paragraph in the beginning that says what their essence is. And so I tried to pull that in to see is a little bit of trying to just, in 2 sentences, 1 sentence, what do these different districts encompass at this time? So then moving down to recommendations, as I mentioned, there's edits to the Code of Ordinances and then edits to the map. So you can see the different sections where there's recommendations in the Code of Ordinances. And then page 4, attachment A, is the amendments to the Code of Ordinances, and these have tracked changes so you can see what's new and you don't have to, try to piece together what the recommendations are. So blue and bold is new language. Struck through red is deleted text. Green and underline means that it already existed, it was just moved elsewhere. And then those 3 asterisks are, we cut out all the text that isn't being edited in between so that you don't have a 40-page report, instead you have 12 or 15 or whatever this ends up being. So they go sequentially through your Code of Ordinances. So it starts with definitions because when we add some things into commercial, there are new definitions that have to be added in order to administer the regulations. And that's 9-205 definitions. So the blue is what's new, and you can see there's just the sentence before and the sentence after to give context to where this is in the Code of Ordinances. But for definitions, it's just alphabetical. So on page 5, commercial district, the uses were brought to you all at the last meeting, and this work of trying to clarify and make the uses more usable, if you will, this work was done by Mark previously. So on page 5, all the way through page 8 is just updating the uses, because there's been some things that are like too specific that should be allowed, but it's not a coffee shop, it's a juice, yeah, the juicery, things like that. And also it makes the list shorter as well. When you get to page 9, these are the things that we pulled in from the master plan work. So things like building orientation, facade material and design, marquees, brick and masonry detailing. So this was not just work that we undertook that's brand new. It was pulling in the work that had already been done as part of the master plan. Landscaping, streetscapes, parking, and so on. There's also on the bottom of page 12, one change that we pulled into C2 Highway Commercial District because it was about large footprint buildings. And then lastly, on page 13, 9-222, there's minor tweaks to historic district as we're acknowledging that we're separating it into an overlay district. So it's not managing the uses, that'll be residential or commercial. It's adding the certificate of appropriateness requirements and things like that. Just further, I guess, adding details in the historic district. So that's what you see is overlay, and then a few things that are crossed out that are jargony or no longer want to manage uses or try to manage uses because it could be conflicting and confusing for the town to administer. And so then on page 14, attachment B, amendments to the zoning map is what we showed you primarily last month. So the first map is all commercial historic and residential historic. And then if you go to page 15, we took out the underlying zoning and said all of these parcels were historic in one way or another. And then on the final map, we have those brown outlines, that's everything historic, with the commercial or the residential underneath as the base zoning. And that's it. Because we cut out all the extra code text in between what we gave to you, it's only 16 pages.
The quick question on map B2. The limits of the proposed historic overlay is not, like there's some missing that I would have expected, like in the center of town. What's the reasoning there?
Still historic, it's just not.
Residential or commercial? Is it multi-use?
The Midtown Cultural District?
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
it wasn't labeled historic residential or historic commercial, it
It's
just has
just-
a zoning.
Okay.
So it doesn't need to be corrected.
So we won't split that one. So the sum of this plus the Midtown Cultural Historic District is the whole.
Yeah.
Right, so these updates to just the commercial and the historic commercial and historic residential are the things that are being changed, and then it will be added to your map as everything else it currently exists.
What about the area along the west side of Highway 59 there, like by Southwind, all that? Is that,
Nothing's changing, it's still gonna be the same zone it is now.
okay.
Because that.
So that overlay, that 150-foot overlay is unimpacted by this because this is just splitting it off of the C1 and C2 designations.
This is just addressing what was accidentally being called historic commercial and historic residential.
Okay.
Right, I did not mention again this time that within the Code of Ordinances, those two zoning districts didn't exist. So if you looked for, commercial historic, that in itself wasn't in there. So when you split them out, you are able to look up the regulations and requirements.
Okay.
Thanks.
I just wanted to add that I can't remember exactly when it was. It might have been 30 or 40 years ago. The council did several rezoning processes where they rezoned property as historic residential and historic commercial. They goofed and rezone things to zones that don't technically exist. The intent was to have a residential zone underneath and apply the historic standards. So this corrects all that.
So in essence, it's just verbiage, right?
Yeah,
Clean up.
to link it
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, okay.
And then we won't bring the ordinances to you until next month. So this is about, questions and clarifications and if you want to make any changes and things like that. So
Yeah, there will be a public hearing next month.
Okay.
to vote on this.
Okay.
And then it will advance to the town council for them to vote on it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's not much to debate on the cleanup. I mean, it needs to be addressed, and it's not changing any jurisdiction, it's not changing any boundaries, so I don't know that there's much room
And it's how it's been
to debate
applied
that
for
one.
years.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we word this?
This is just discuss, right? We're not making any act, yeah, it's just
Okay.
discussion, because
Okay.
we'll see it next month or when it's ready. I had a question on the, it's like the changes on the ordinance. I know a lot of this is coming out of the master plan, and I was wondering when we were going through that process, how that dovetails into our historic guidelines, but I guess it doesn't matter, right? So this would sit outside of our historic guidelines unless it's in the historic overlay district. Would that take precedent, or if there's a conflict between some of this stuff related to building facade and layouts versus historic guidelines, how does that get resolved?
Yeah, I think as a second step, you would need to want to go through the guidelines, or the Historic Commission would, with the goal of reconciling any conflicts. Yeah, yeah.
So I guess the time to bump those together would be before we adopt this, right? Because they may take issue with some of what's presented here, or,
Any updates to
I mean, we've been working on updates to historic, but I don't think that we can delay this until that's done.
Okay.
And you'll see G on page 9 also references if it's within a historic district, it must comply. That doesn't get to your point of, if there's a conflict, but it is acknowledging like this is important to the commercial district that if you're in historic, you are following these regulations.
Isn't historic stuff more about aesthetics, color of the house, how the house is built? This is more of
Making changes to it.
parking in the
yeah,
back, all the master plan stuff.
Right.
I think. I don't know.
John, that's a very good point.
It's
We're
just-
gonna review this at the next historic meeting to get their buy-in, see if they have any conflicts, and we will address that at the next planning and zoning meeting.
I mean, I agree with you. I think most of it, there's not room to, but some of it is just a little
Yeah, there
specific,
could be, there
like
could be conflicts, but
width of entrance plus
all-
4 feet on center, height 50%, they might,
yeah,
the
that
ratios.
could have,
like,
that
I-
could have
I
impact.
mean, it
yeah.
almost
some of
looks
it's
like
pretty
this
specific.
is
The
for
big picture
commercial.
stuff.
Yeah,
I'm reading this, I
most
think
of-
this is
It is.
commercial, but it doesn't say that, right? Or is that?
Well, this is the
I don't think
commercial,
it did. I mean,
this is the commercial district.
Okay.
So it only applies to commercial.
Only
So if
applies to
there's,
commercial, you're
if
right.
you have a commercial property outside of the historic overlay, this would apply.
okay,
If you have if it's within the historic overlay district, then this
Yeah.
would apply as well as the historic design guidelines. So it's just if there's a
Yeah,
conflict or something that historic would disagree in here, that maybe the guidelines are silent on, all of a sudden we're enforcing something they may not want to see or something.
And fortunately, your Historic Commission is probably the most technically able commission I've ever worked with. And I think you've got 3 architects and an engineer there. So they should be able to give this a good critical look in a short period of time and get back to you on that, reconcile any changes.
And Ron has looked at this.
And what it tries to get to as well is when you have new development, you don't just get, a metal building with no undulation or aesthetic value, but you get something that fits more within what is Abita Springs. And so I think looking at from that perspective is also helpful.
Oh, yeah, I think it would be well supported because it gives some ability to steer design, even if it falls fully outside of the purview of historic. There's still some, I mean, that's kind of what the attempt of the master plan was, right? To ensure, so yeah.
I have a quick question. It says, was it page 11 about landscaping? Of course, I'm going to ask about it. It touches on provisions for protected trees, but is there any type of tree protection other than just construction fencing for trees during construction? Like in any of the ordinances? Because trees that aren't protected usually get killed.
Right.
Like I've noticed across the street, they park under all these live oaks. That compacts the soil, which
Is
kills
the
the
critical
trees.
root zone and, right.
So they shouldn't be parking under the trees, like things
Right.
like that. You put mulch down, you fence it off, there's things you can do. You want to add something like that? I probably have stuff, from work I could share
Yeah.
with y'all.
And I can send you what we've been handing out in the building permit packets. Because Dr. Guidry, the arborist for the town, we've gone through and made an entire packet that all builders get that explain how to properly protect the critical root zone, how many feet to go out. And we're no longer even accepting just the low fencing around the tree. It's got to be like 4 feet tall and
Right.
orange fencing, and he was requiring metal posts.
Yeah. Well,
So
we
it's
do chain
been
link.
upgraded, yeah.
Well, you're talking about kind of the during construction, protection of the trees,
Right.
like not severing roots, things like that, but also, you're talking about like ongoing, like you would want to see,
I mean, applying to any construction, really. I
okay, just
mean,
with construction, not post.
right.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, just seeing this kind of reminded me to bring that up, that's all.
Makes sense.
So Mike, if there's any comments you'd want to get to staff, maybe in the next couple of weeks on what you see here, that would be helpful so that we could make any changes in advance of that public hearing.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that.
All good? Any other?
Yeah. Okay.
All right, thank you. We can move to the next item if we got nothing else. All right, next item is, yes, I saw the historic meeting earlier this week.
So
This letter here, right?
we had an application on the agenda for the historic meeting for a billboard. And even though it's allowed in our current commercial zone, it's zoned historic, so it's covered, I mean, it's got a historic overlay, and that does not allow billboards. So this letter is basically saying you need to asking you guys to take billboards out of the zone, which has already been done in the language that we just reviewed, and to require that any signage that's installed is for the property that it's on. So you wouldn't be able to put up a billboard or even a sign in town that says, hey, come to Covington and shop. It would have to be for
Well,
the
that makes
the
sense.
store that's on the site.
Right.
What about political signs?
Local signs still have to follow the historic guidelines, but they're fine, yeah.
Okay.
So I guess we would essentially be banning advertising billboards within the commercial district.
Correct.
Are
It would not be an approved use anymore, which if we scroll up,
we looking for like a carte blanche ban, like why just commercial district?
well, that's the only area they were allowed in.
In this language here, you're talking about?
In
that's
our
the
code
red
of
that's struck out.
ordinances,
Okay, and the
yes.
other zone definitions, it's not mentioned specifically like
only-
it is here.
Yes, the only place that the word billboard shows up in any of our code is in commercial. And it just so happens that when Mark was writing, when we were working on the rewrite before, it was removed as an allowable use.
So we're taking action. on
We're already-
that
yes.
Anyway,
Yes. But they still wanted the letter to be on the record.
sure, yeah. Is there anything that needs to be done with that caveat there around signs should be limited to the purpose of identifying the business operating on the premises? Nothing code-wise we should inject.
Is that something that'll be included
there,
in
right? Or
historic
is that
guidelines?
included?
Because the historic guidelines right now oversee signs.
So it's just
So that would be,
already governed.
well, it would be something that we would have to add to the historic guidelines, I believe. Our current historic guidelines control what the sign looks like, the material, the lighting, but they don't control the message. So that would need to be something that is added to their oversight. The content. Not the design, just that it's for a local store.
But we could potentially have commercial property not subject to the historic overlay, right?
We have one piece, no, we don't have any.
Gotcha. Okay, none?
Because of the standard that makes along the highway corridors, the historic design guidelines apply, all the commercial properties along those corridors.
So 435, 59, 59 Range Line, 36, they're all corridors into town, so they all fall under historic. So it kind of worked out.
Okay. All right. Last item up under zoning. We now have the correct meeting dates proposed for 2025 meetings.
Yes, only Kara caught it, so thanks, Kara.
I have a comment on this.
Okay,
The bottom, it says, meeting is not on the regular schedule with an asterisk, but there's no asterisks on any of the dates.
you were,
Technicality.
Kara, what do you have to say for yourself?
I'm sorry.
It should be on November and December.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured.
But if you feel inclined to show up for a meeting on Thanksgiving night, no one else will be here. Feel free.
I almost didn't say anything. Okay.
Or Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Or Christmas.
That was funny.
We don't need a motion for that, right? It's just, it says approval. It's just all good unless, okay. We probably can't change them anyway.
No,
if we
not
want.
really. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll
Easiest
approve
meeting
that one.
ever. Yes.
Okay, that moves us into discussion portion of the agenda. First item up is public comments. We can have comments from the public, 2 minutes. Anything you want to talk about and address the commission, we are all ears. Please. You mind turning that mic on? Just press that button. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, we're talking about historic today. Abita was designed with historical lots, 50 to 60 foot wide, and somehow they got up to 100 feet. So I think that they should go back to 50 to 60 foot wide, because that's sprawl. It's not good. It's not approved. That kind of stuff is not approved by the American Institute of Architects or the American Planning Association. None of the associations, none of the professional associations agree with big lots in small towns. And they weren't designed that way. They were designed with historical lots. So it seems that historical lots should go with a historical town, right? That's just one point I wanted to bring up. The other one is, as time goes on, there's a revised statute, chapter 31, that says, as time goes on, demographics change and ordinances should change in line with demographics. And that's one of the reasons why zoning is based upon demographics. So if you get, and that's why 2.5 people right now is the average household. So do they need a 100-foot wide lot? I don't think so. Other things I wanted to talk about real quickly is ancillary, flexible use of ancillary building. You're right in your, that ancillary buildings should be owner occupied. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? I mean, you got your house here and then you got another house behind it, but you need to occupy both. So it shouldn't be owner occupied. That should change. People should be able to rent that out or do whatever they want with that house. It shouldn't have to be owner occupied, I don't think. Okay, slab on grade. One of the reasons that no commercial has been done on the highways is that the past administration 30 years ago said that all of the houses, all the commercials have to be historic and have to be raised 2 feet. I don't know of any raised retail that's successful or that's even out there. Do you see any raised retail around these days?
Covington?
So I think that needs to be changed. Should be able to go slab on grade, right? Okay. Well, you got, there is actually was an ordinance that needs to go out then. You need to change it.
No, it says that commercial can be on grade, just residential has to be raised.
Well, that makes sense. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, flat roofs, in a C2 zone, flat roofs are kind of commercial or historical. You get a flat roof and you get like a small little wall at the top, But apparently, all the roofs have to look like an 8-12 pitch or something like that. So that
That's
really,
historic.
huh?
That's historic.
That's historic,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, what about inns or hotels, guest rooms? That should be increased up to 30 units. Right now, it's like 10. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? 10? What about apartments in commercial? Are apartments allowed in commercial? C2? Multifamily? I mean, it seems like it should be, right?
Yes. And if you want to stop by the office, we can
Yeah,
chat
okay.
about these things.
Yeah, townhouse, condominium, multifamily, mixed use.
Yeah, but they're saying something like, it has to be 20%, it can only be 20% of the ground floor,
Okay,
right? That doesn't make sense.
okay.
Yeah, maybe if there, I guess it was a little hard to follow if, some of those comments I think were relevant to the historic design guidelines. Some might be relevant to the commercial ordinances, some of which we're actually in the process of revising, which is the first step to a grander plan of revamping the zoning districts and those ordinances. So I heard everything you said, but I think you need to get a little more specific to kind of drive, which section are you looking at? What is the issue? And you'll have to work with the staff on some of that. Kristen can kind of help, get with Mark if we've got an issue or some conflicts or something that needs to be resolved. We can do it during this process of revamping the zoning ordinances. I heard everything you said. I'm just having trouble following. It was a lot, kind of jumping is all, right? Sure, yeah. No, I get it. We can't do anything with it here tonight anyway, so I didn't drive any clarity, but I understand you got a lot of comments to it, so I think if you work with Kristen, Mark, we can, if there's something needs to get on the agenda, we need to look at some items, that's the only way we're going to get them changed is, or looked at. Okay, good deal, appreciate it. Any other public comments? Any other comments at all? How about announcements? Any announcements? Kristen always has some good announcements. What you got for us, Kristen? November,
The Sunday,
8th.
December 8th, the Christmas market's on Sunday afternoon this year from 2 to 7. And the Christmas tree lighting and the Christmas market, it's very special.
I have a conflict on this date. If
I
we
do
can
too.
move it.
I already tried.
Moving, or this is, okay.
No, it's already done. It's a done deal.
Done deal.
When's the street gonna be finished?
Very soon.
It looks close.
It's just a fun market
It looks
for Christmas.
It's really like farmer's market, but they do tree lighting and there's usually
Singing.
some, yeah, choir.
Sometimes
like
there's hot
school or
drinks.
Drinks,
driving down
chestnuts.
Grover.
It's a really special event for Christmas, and you can do your Christmas shopping there. Yeah.
Do we have any setup in case of inclement weather?
We would have to talk to the event staff about that.
If it snows.
Yeah.
If it snows, it'll probably
Monsoon,
still just
you
go
know.
forward.
Yeah, it's coming down on the, out there on the coast there.
Oh, the new Pushmo theme was announced.
Oh, yay, let's hear it.
Nightmare at the Museum.
Oh my God, I love it.
So we're gonna have a bunch of zombies in town?
It's
Something,
gonna be great.
that's a great
Yeah.
choice. Did John Preble come up with this idea, or?
I think that's a wrap.
Stewart?
I think it was a joint effort from so many good people.
Okay, that's good too.
Okay.
It's Kristen's
I was just
idea.
curious.
Wasn't too many to name.
Well, it's a great way to utilize
So
our
many
extra
hands.
Halloween things, so.
Yeah, no, I love it. I like it. Opens the door to a lot of possibilities.
Oh, yeah.
Indeed, indeed.
As a horror movie fan, I am very excited.
Really, me too.
Oh, yeah,
Brenda and I love horror movies.
we do too.
Oh my gosh.
Put that in the minutes, Heather.
All right. So I think that's it.
Okay.
Level Street will be done soon. You heard it here first. Very good.
I can't give you an exact date because of the weather, but it's before the year is over, for sure.
It's thousands
Gosh, that doesn't seem soon.
Huh?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, all good. So
40 days.
if we're good, we could hear a motion for adjournment and maybe a second and a vote. Otherwise, we're here for a little longer.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second the motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, happy
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
too.
How do I turn this off? So, I hope so. I just want it over. I'm ready for it to be over. Good, thank you so much for letting me put my signs there. I appreciate it so much. I'm